Still on the fight against insurgency, the spokesman of the force, Colonel Timothy Antigua, has confirmed that troops of the multinational joint task force have neutralized 20 Boko Haram terrorists at the fringes of the Lake Chad in a renewed effort to end the activities of the terrorists in the area. Terrorism risk management analyst Chidi Nwonu joins us from London via Skype. Chidi, thank you for joining us. Now, how would you evaluate the efforts made on the Lake Chad basin so far with the gains made? 20 Boko Haram insurgents neutralized, several gun trucks, arms and ammunition recovered.
Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for having me on. The gains that have been made, have to be measured against the losses, because whilst the Nigerian army or the MJTF, conducted this offensive in Arega and Malkanori, Boko Haram in themselves, or Boko Haram ISWAP, attacked, Nigerian bases in Dikwa and Karanoa, inflicting casualties and capturing equipment. So it was a bit of a back and forth battle in that the Nigerian army or the MJTF is conducting their offensive while the Boko Haram ISWAP are conducting their counteroffensive. So far, you can't necessarily assess who is winning. It's just both sides are having a go at each other.
So how can the military maintain, or the MJTF maintain its tempo of winning its counteroffensive, especially with what it has achieved so far?
Yeah, so that's exactly, the right kind of question that we're looking for, is maintaining the tempo, maintaining the, this kind of aggressive operations, because the response from Boko Haram itself of attacking Nigerian bases is not unusual. That will be what they would do. That what you want to be able to do is make sure that those attacks are unsuccessful. So the key thing is hardening, MJTF bases, making it difficult for Boko Haram to actually get close enough to the bases to overrun them. And if they do overrun them, making sure they pay a very hard penalty, either through destroying them with artillery or airstrikes. At the same time, to maintain the offensive operations, there needs to be a constant, battle with them of, constant attacks, constant patrols that keeps the enemy off balance, and then prevents them from having, the space in which to, counterattack or maintain their own kind of cohesion.
All right. Recently, the president was at the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, where the cooperation said it would give support to the Lake Chad Basin countries in its fight against insurgency. What kind of support are you expecting?
So far, countries like Jordan have, helped with training in some of the Air Force, ground forces, have donated equipment or donated or provided equipment. And what you would hope to get from sources, particularly in the Middle East or the Gulf, where those countries are quite wealthy, is things like assistance with with equipment, either gifting or helping to pay for equipment, or helping to pay for training facilities, and helping with relief. We wouldn't necessarily look for training from these countries, because although we might have common doctrines, there's already, sufficient foreign input in our training from the British, the Americans, the French. They're adding more and more layers. It's just going to make it more complicated. But they could definitely assist in terms of providing money for equipment or providing equipment themselves, and also with the relief efforts, for IDPs and refugees.
Now, on June the 12th, the president is to hold an informal summit with members of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. What do you think should be at the front burner when they have these discussions on June the 12th?
So one of the key things is sustaining the effort. So it always seems to take a lot of running around to get everybody together for an offensive. And, this makes a bit of sense. The countries we're dealing with, like Chad and Niger, are not wealthy countries. They have their own internal and external security threats, and it takes a while to get them, onto the playing field and into the offensive. So what should be looked at now is trying to get these countries to dedicate troops and resources to the MJTF, getting their foreign partners like the Americans and the French to, in some way, kind of ensure that they're there, that there's a constant presence, and that they're able to either form a blocking force to prevent Boko Haram from passing back and forth over the Nigerian, the Chadian, and the Cameroonian border, and as well provide troops for, account for these offensive operations, which are quite key in, pushing the ISWAP back, but also are very resource intensive, and in an area where it's very difficult to get resources to. So it's going to be a massive balancing act in trying to convince these countries that it's in their interest to maintain their level of forces and to dedicate the amount of resources to this battle that, is needed.
All right, terrorism risk management analyst Chidi Nwonu, thank you for your time on the news.